Ruby Mountain Bliss, Shawna Glasser, Ruby Mountain Bliss.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, distinguished Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests this evening. 24 years. 24 years. It's one of my favorite speeches, how it started recently that Kristen had done. I loved how it started. 24 years is how long I've been married to my husband. When you get over 20 years, you can finish each other's sentences. You know everything there is to know about that other person. How do you keep things fresh? How do you keep it exciting? Well, the predominant advice is keep dating each other. How do you do that? We spent the last 2 years, every few weeks, a family has something to celebrate. So we have to set aside time to go to that. I volunteer like crazy. Richard works full time. I'm very involved with one of my son's school activities. The other son I'm helping with his application to go to Italy. Hey, Daniel, would you like to tell us a little bit about the application process for Italy? And tell us how hard it was?
Are you the one who's speaking right now?
Great point. Let me get back to it. All these things are pulling at all the time that we have left in our schedules. We decided to recarpet our entire upstairs. We decided to go from real grass to fake grass, and we had to haul all of our bricks out up front. When on earth am I ever going to have time to date this man? Well, if your marriage is important, you have to set aside that time. Chris, what resonated with you that I just said? I came up with, we were going to go on 3 dates a month. Surely we could set aside time 3 times a month to go on a date. We sat down, we talked it over. We're going to do 1 big date, 1 small date, and have a drink together. We could have a drink on the patio and just talk about something. We could go to Starbucks and get a drink that we had no idea what it was, just to try something different and to share and to talk. The interesting part was my definition of big and small were different than his. You think after all these years we would have the same distinction, but mine was big cost a lot of money and small didn't cost anything. His was that big was a lot of time and small took a little bit of time. We actually had dates that were big for me, small for him. One was a massage. They were expensive, so it was big on my list, but they're only an hour to hour and a half, so it was small on his list. I thought that was really interesting, that how we just kind of combined like that. We then put them on a calendar.
Sorry.
How does that relate to my theme? I'm trying.
Well,
Well,
well, I was thinking about Richard and how he came up with all these great ideas. He is definitely bad to the bone if he came up with those ideas. So
you are so correct. He is amazing and bad to the bone. Came up with a timeline Anthony, I understand emergencies come up and you have to deal with stuff on your phone and being accessible 24/7. The best place to take that would be right around the
Oh, I
corner
mean,
there, so you
you're
get
good to go.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Shawna, that's not very nice. He's an audience member.
And I'm the biggest audience member too, so just saying.
And he's big.
That's very true, Linda,
You know, the customer's always right.
for sure. We went to the Ruby Mountains as one of our dates. You can only go to the Ruby Mountains when it's not snowing, which if anybody knows where this place is at, it's in Elko, Nevada, which is 7 hours north of where we are now. And the winters can get as cold as 40 below. No thanks. July had just started thawing out, and we put it on our schedule. There's this beautiful hike that is for 40 miles. It's called a through hike because you start at one place, you end at a different spot, and you spend more than just a few days backpacking everything you own on your back. We decided we needed to pack as light as we could, and we decided not to pack our tent because it was supposed to be 80 for the high, 50s for the low, no sign of rain, no sign of anything but beautiful sunshine. This hike was really cool because every day that you hike is a different experience. First day was very deserty, and some people don't like the desert, but I particularly find it beautiful. Second day was more green and had more foliage, had a lot of crickets, just a lot of wildlife. It was a little more where people didn't hike, so we had the place to ourselves. We did stop and get some of our water, and we used a water filter. For whatever reason, it wasn't working, so it was trickling water. We were a little concerned that it took 2 hours to get one of our backpacks full of water. So that was our first challenge. But somehow when you're stuck in a challenge with somebody you love, you grow together. And then maybe that was the point of us going on these dates. The third day, well, second day, we actually found an old cabin that had holes in it everywhere. Yes, Andy?
I'm sorry, this is a bit ago, but you mentioned the temperature was like, I think you said 40 degrees. Was that Fahrenheit or Celsius?
That is an excellent question, and if you could write that down so you remember afterward, I would love to answer the questions afterward. Again, we found this cabin, and we decided we're going to take shelter if nobody else is taking this. We found a chipmunk that we ended up naming Joe because he kept poking his head in. You guys got any snacks? You guys got any snacks? And don't get used to people, buddy. Go away. He told us goodbye the next day as we packed up on our adventure. And we kept going through the switchbacks in the mountains. And it rained every single day between 1 and 2 o'clock. For not having any weather. Okay, mountains are just different. Sometimes you have weather, sometimes you don't. Whatever, we'll deal with it. Cleared at 4 o'clock. We're gonna do great. This is gonna be great. Comes back at 5. It's getting darker, cloudier, windier. Okay. And that we're on top of the ridge at this point. So Richard's like, when you get up to the top, scurry down because you don't want to be on the top. You don't want to be the highest thing when if there's going to be lightning going on. Come off the mountains each time. We get to our last section. And we had to decide, do we want dinner? Do we want to press on? How do we want to handle this? Well, it starts raining. So we huddle down, we have these emergency blankets. We huddle down, we try to get our dinner without touching anything else. You like that memory too?
Yeah.
We huddle down, we eat dinner. We try to decide, do we press forward? Do we stay where we're at? It ended up getting really bad, so we just huddled down where we were. Richard is unbelievably flexible and just gets into child's pose like yoga, puts his emergency blanket over him, and he manages to stay dry. I am not that flexible. And I can't, so I had this brilliant idea. I'm gonna put my inflatable mattress over me like an awning. So I'm just laying there holding onto it. And the wind decides to get really rough, blows it off. I get soaked when I'm trying to get control of that thing. I'm totally drenched. This weather battles us for 5.5 hours. And about 11:30, kind of losing my spirits. Because I'm like, we just have to make it until the morning. But the weather is just pounding us. I'm freezing, my teeth are chattering, and I had to keep asking myself, are you cold?
Is it worth the 25th year? Seems like that's a lot.
You're on your 25th too, so you'll have to make that decision as well. I had asked myself, am I cold and shivering? Am I teeth chattering because I'm cold or because I'm scared? And honestly, it was a combination of the both. I'm not a very religious person, but me and God had a few tender moments. And I just asked if you could see us through to the morning, I sure would appreciate it. We're good people, and I would appreciate keeping an eye on us. We kept checking on each other. How are you doing? I would lie to him because I was completely soaked and miserable, but I knew if he helped me, he would have to come out of his dry situation and put himself more at risk. And there was really no supplies you could give me or help you could give me at this point without him getting into further peril. We just hung in there all night. 4 o'clock, about 4:15, the rain stopped. And I peeked over at him through my emergency blanket, and I could see he was just huddled up like this, face flat on the mat. And I thought, you know what? That's actually pretty brilliant. So I had my inflatable mattress deflated, wrapped around the top of me, my emergency blanket on the bottom, just went like this, went face down on my mat, and I actually fell asleep for 33 blissful minutes. Then the most spectacular moment that we had waited all night for happened. At 5:03, the sun broke, and it felt amazing. We ended up warming up, and we started continuing on with our journey. And even though we were scared, there's something bonding about a moment like that you can only experience, the two of you understanding what you went through.
That's how you end up going to prison though.
What are you gonna do?
Very true. We carried on with our adventure. The last day, we ended up climbing out. This hike was 9,300 of elevation gain, 41 miles complete. and some of the most stunning scenery you could have ever imagined. So while we had our moments of pit and disgust and struggle and strife, we weathered it together. We had the place to ourselves. Not another soul was out there. It was us against the world, the way it started when we first started dating. So I'm glad that we had that opportunity, and I wouldn't change that for the world. Mr. Toastmaster.